So Ecuador is an amazing place with tons of varying landscapes, from some of the highest mountains, the Andes, to the lower river basins that lead down to the Amazon. My son, Gray, and I, with two friends, Katie Winton and Blake Guffin.
There's Katie, Gray.
In February of 2023, we spent 10 days there exploring the country and mainly working alongside missionaries who are there on the ground full-time. I've traveled to many places all over the world shooting weddings and other projects, but over the past few years, God has really opened the doors up for me to go to other countries especially and be able to share stories of how the gospel is changing lives of people around the world. It's just cool to see what God is doing in other parts of the world. So Katie, Blake, and I are all photographers and videographers, and we wanted to be able to go to Ecuador to be able to resource a few of the missionaries who are there serving on the ground, who've been there for many years, and to help them have some content to share about their ministry with their supporters and what they're doing there, and to help them grow their support network. We focused on two main families while we were there, the Calvert family and the Bormans family. They're both there serving in different ways in Ecuador. The Calvert family works there in Quito and the surrounding area, and one of the main things we did while we were there was to go up on the mountainside village of Uyachul. They work with a church there.
So for this church community here in Uyachul, this is actually not their facility. They rent this, and this is just a small house that they rent, and they've built a facility onto the house where they can have church. So we're building them a new sanctuary that will also have a kitchen and dining hall to be able to feed the kids and facilitate their feeding program in a more efficient manner. And so we're excited about that. We're excited about what the church is doing in the community, and how they're making disciples and loving children, feeding children, and teaching them about Jesus.
Currently the church is meeting in a small block building that actually has cardboard walls on the outside to extend it out for their worship center. It's a pretty small little church, but they are doing a lot of great things.
La venida de la iglesia ha ayudado a muchas familias.
He said that a great example of this is what happened during the pandemic. During the pandemic was the church the one that was able to provide food for the families because nobody was able to work. In the lockdown, nobody was able to go anywhere to work or buy things, and the church was the channel that God used to provide to all the families around here.
So we took a long flight into Quito. We had a long layover in Miami. We arrived at the airport and were picked up by one of the missionaries, and they took us to our hotel. For a few days we were there. It's just a few blocks off the equator. The main purpose of our trip to Ecuador was to resource the missionaries there on the ground, but we couldn't pass up the opportunity to explore some of the area while we were there in such an amazing place. So I armed Gray with a GoPro and we went out. Some of the highlights of the places we went were Mindo in the lower elevations. We got to check out some waterfalls and things there. We got to take in some great views looking over Quito as we took the cable car, the Teleferico, to the top of the mountain. South America is somewhere that I've wanted to go, and I've just not had the opportunity to go until this past spring. It's really encouraging to see God work through different people and tribes and languages throughout the world. Over the last few years, I've had a great opportunity to go and be able to witness it firsthand in quite a few places. As a family, we really value introducing our kids to as many cultures as we can and seeing life outside of America to help them get a grasp of God's hand at work throughout the world. Our kids don't even realize how great they have it in the places that they've been able to go and see, the things they've been able to do. They're not the tourist destinations that people normally try to hit. We want them to see the world through a gospel lens and see God working around the world and different people in different places and see how they can be a part of that. They're getting the opportunity to see how God works in other places, how people live in other places. It's giving them a much better worldview through the lens of the gospel. So we had the awesome opportunity to go to the jungle. We spent a few days and traveled with Ron Borman to the northern edge of Ecuador, close to the Colombian border. And man, on the road, he was telling us all kind of stories about how God used his family over the past 60 or so years there in Ecuador. And it's cool to see how God used his parents when they went and him when he was there as a kid and the rest of his family. And then also how God is continuing to use them there now. The very ripe one.
So these are, we call them the lazy man's lemons because two of them make a nice gallon pitcher of lemonade. So this is just extra.
So while he lives in Quito now, he often travels back to the town of Drano, where the Kofan people are, which his family has worked with for many years. And they are currently translating the Old Testament in their native language. When his parents came about 60 years ago, they helped the Kofans develop a written language. They just had a spoken language. So they helped them develop a written language and then took that written language and used a lot of the same phonetics and stuff that is in Spanish. And they took that and translated the New Testament and parts of the Old Testament, but the whole thing they didn't get done. And so now one of the things they're doing is so that the Kofans will have the full Bible in their language instead of having to read part of the Old Testament in Spanish. They're currently working on translating the Bible into their language. In 2023, it's crazy to think that there are still people groups in the world that do not have the Bible in their native tongue. Many of them can speak other languages, but their understanding is really best when they can read it in their native language. It's really encouraging to see how God calls people to serve a culture where they've never been before, and how the love for those people and the desire for them to hear the gospel is evident as they interact and live amongst the people. It's very humbling to see God use normal people to carry out his greater purpose. in the jungle, we had the opportunity to go out on a bird watching boat ride out on the preserve on the lake. And then we went back out that night for him to take us out and wrangle caiman, which are like alligator, crocodile, but we were catching the small ones, but he would lay on the boat and ride up on the front, and then as he'd get close, he'd just reach down and grab them with his hands. It was pretty cool, all in the dark.
Oh yeah, looks long. His tail looks longer, but
While on that boat ride that night, we experienced one of the coolest things that I've probably seen in my lifetime. Glowworms on Limoncocha Lake were along the shore the whole time, and we could see parts of the bioluminescence there as we were going along. But we pulled up into this lagoon, and they were covering every bit of the water, and they were all glowing, and it was just something that photo and video really just didn't even hold a candle to what it actually looked like. It was such a unique thing to see, and the wonder of God's creation.
Like that. Yeah, I figure it's about 15 to 20 years to the river. Wow. And the river changed course and just started eating it away and completely took.
What is it again? Also, Cotopaxi, that was something that we wanted to see while we were there, but it was crazy cloudy from Quito the whole time, and we couldn't see it from the city. And the park was open and closed part of the time due to the volcanic activity, because it's actually active right now. And thankfully, on the last day, we were able to go there to the national park. It was open, and we were able to go stand at the foot of the volcano and see. You could see the smoke rising out of the top of it as we were there. While most of my travels I try to document through photo and video, it's really something that you have to be there to truly experience all of it. One of the things I encourage others to often do is to take the opportunities you can to go and see the world. So many times people don't want to make it a priority, or they don't think it's a good time right now to go. The hassle of traveling, the cost of traveling, but really there's so much out there to see, and God has shown me so many things in my travels. And it's the more I do, the more I want to see. I love going and experiencing the cultures and seeing how God is changing lives around the world.
Ampikui patsa kuna setapuen chuma ken setapuen. Keki nyotia findi cho te wehema isuye isupa anke chuma tuyuma batianye. Nani kema fiti fasiki ke ahampai ke aima chavasitsa chigambe vendafa. Tsakamba ki te wehema fetayusha. Nani pui ai puyaya fasa puyande se puina se manda sa aima ki chava kense ingiha fechiga ainde kveda dapa ingi chia kitama afasonde kveda faye. Tuya ke nasonde kveda pangi pui ande sonde kama manda faya.